Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. You can follow me on X at Movies TV Mad and on Instagram and on Threads at Movies TV Mad X. A very warm welcome to Saturday's edition of the Movies TV Mad Daily. I have become very disillusioned in the entertainment industry, not just in Hollywood, but in the UK as well. And there's so many problems. There's so many reasons. You know, the lack of experimentation, the lack of bravery, the political extremism that's like a cancer in our industry today. This is what's killing entertainment. The lack of daring do. The lack of being able to go to the cinema and seeing something magical projected on the screen. Or seeing, a retelling or a dramatization of our history, but it not being accurate history. You know, there's so many problems. We're not educating our young people and using scripted movies to do it properly. What about Oppenheimer, Mick? Well, I was rewatching that this morning. Look, it's interesting that is deemed the best movie of 2023. Mostly because there wasn't very good movies in 2023. We see the first 30 minutes, we have a sex scene that, there's no point in having. And it's not even an interestingly shot sex scene. There's actually no reason or no proper logical reason for that young woman to be topless in that scene, for them to even have that sex scene. Now listen, I'm a straight 51-year-old male. I don't mind seeing a woman's breasts in films. I'm not saying that. But even to my perversions, there didn't seem to be any good reason to have it in the film. I just didn't feel interested in the person who Oppenheimer is. I didn't think it's one of Christopher Nolan's better movies, and that's just my opinion. But normally I can look at my disillusionment in entertainment today and put a brave face on it, put a laughing emoji. Some people think laughing emojis are passive aggressive. They are. I do use my passive aggression in the verge of humour. Because you have to laugh. You have to keep on shoving that laughing emoji just for your own sanity. Because entertainment has fallen so low. And for someone who grew up within the eras of great entertainment and watching older movies that were made before I was born and enjoying them and being uplifted by them, today's entertainment industry mindset really does hurt me. But there was one thing that was the final straw for me yesterday. I was seeing all the CinemaCon news come in. In years gone by, it was very exciting. But one announcement really upset me. It was the announcement that Edgar Wright will be writing and directing a reboot of The Running Man, a film I really like starring Arnold Schwarzenegger. It really hurt me, it upset me, and it made me want to put my head through a fucking window. Because yes, I deeply care about what's happening to our entertainment industry. Even worse, Glenn Powell replaces Arnold Schwarzenegger in the lead role. Glenn fucking Powell. Now don't get me wrong. Glenn Powell should be everything someone like me wants in a starring lead. He's a very aspirational looking young actor. But I don't see him as one of the great actors. And there's certainly, the film he did with Sydney Sweeney is just up his alley, right? No pun intended there. But, is there really a need to reboot The Running Man? But Mick, in the past 40, 50 years, the good old days as you call them, there were reboots, there were remakes. What's your fucking problem? Yeah, we had a remake of Robin Hood. Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, a great remake. We had a remake of the Fugitive television series, and it was great. But not every fucking project was a remake, a reboot, a prequel, a reimagination. Most of the announcements yesterday were reboots and retellings and prequels. There was one announcement about a prison movie, which is an original take, I think. But mostly, it's just fucking reboots, everyone. And the people running this industry, running these different studios, don't care about the business they're in today. And they keep on complaining that they're losing money. Cinema owners are complaining that people ain't going to movie theatres anymore. Why do you think that is? Movie owners were at CinemaCon applauding all the shit fucking announcements and all the 8 minutes of footage, shit footage they were getting. Shit footage of the latest Captain America movie, which again is going to be about race and colour, right? Yet again, it's political. It's race baiting yet again. This is not entertaining because we're not talking about the Quantum Leap episode when Sam Beckett leaps into a black slave and it's done really, really well. Really well. When, we had a Malcolm X movie starring Denzel Washington, directed by Spike Lee, done in a really good way. They don't strike these conversations in an entertaining fashion where we can learn something, where our young people can be educated. It's talking down. It's constant bashing over the head. I've become recently very obsessed with this film, The Wizard of Oz. In fact, after I heard the news of the Running Man reboot, instead of doing what I wanted to do, which is what I said earlier, put my head through a fucking window, because that news upset me. And don't get me wrong, Edgar Wright is one of the great writer-directors. Even though he told me to fuck off within my DMs, I still respect him. And I still like Edgar as a talented writer-director. But what are you doing, Edgar? What are you doing, my friend? You're a talented man. Why are you making a fucking reboot? And of course I knew what they were going to say. That this reboot is going to be more faithful to the source material because The Running Man is based on a novel. But the reason The Running Man's a good film, because it's not so based on the novel and it becomes its own thing. But we'll see, because Edgar Wright is capable of making a great movie. Maybe it'll be a great remake. But there's too many remakes and there's a lack of originality. I'm still triggered about the Megalopolis thing by Francis Ford Coppola, that it's too experimental. Well, this movie is as experimental as it gets. This movie was released in theatres in 1939. I know I'm boring you talking about this movie on social media, but I'm obsessed with it because when I see Judy Garland in this film, even today, I cry, happy tears. And when I'm watching her sing Somewhere Over the Rainbow, it's like all my dreams are coming true all at once. It's very emotional to me. Of course, I grew up with this movie, but it's hitting me deeper now. It's hitting me deeper now because of the way the industry is. That, and we can't ignore what happened on the set of this movie. Of course we can't. There were a lot of accidents. The original casting for the Tin Man got very, very ill and they had to replace him. Very disturbing rumours of what Judy Garland went through, on the set of this film. I can't ignore that either. But I can't ignore that a 16-year-old girl commanded the screen in 1939. It was very revolutionary to turn this story, a very famous story from a bunch of books from a genius called Frank Baum, into a musical. Because in the 1930s, a lot of movies were musicals, right? So it was a very, very good idea. I wish we had more musicals in movies today. Not that I'm a big musical kind of scripted dramatist myself, and it's not necessarily something I appreciate myself, but I like it. I think it's varied, it's variety. one of the things that upset me was everyone saying, oh my God, the new Joker movie is going to be a musical. Oh my God, that's terrible. Why is that such a terrible thing? Are you that offended by variety in your entertainment? Well, it looks like a lot of people are. But already we've seen that this movie is going to be very, very interesting. Make more fucking musicals. But we need talented people to make dramatised musicals. This film is about dreams. Somewhere over the rainbow. Do you understand what somewhere over the rainbow actually means? It's Luke Skywalker looking at the two moons. It's a young kid, a young girl who's living on a farm with her elderly aunt and uncle that hasn't got very much to look forward to. Her main passion is her dog Toto. His life is under threat from a very evil woman who owns half the town. And her passion and tears to protect this dog is probably some of the greatest storytelling you will ever see on the big screen. I'm not a dog or an animal or pet person myself, although I don't want anything bad to happen to animals. I'm not necessarily an animal lover. I do like cats and I do look after stray cats, always feed them when they come to my property because I'm a compassionate guy, right? You know, don't let the skinhead fool you. But to see a young character, it's interesting watching that. The young people we see today, their main motivation is scrolling up and down on TikTok. So it's a very, to see a young 16-year-old girl living on a farm, caring about her dog, and fantasizing about this world called Oz. It's a beautiful story. And the idea of somewhere over the rainbow is there must be a better life for me somewhere else. It's a fantasy every child has, right? Surely there's better. But when she goes on her adventure, she realizes there's no place like home. I think I may have mentioned this yesterday on my video when we talk about Back to the Future. Back to the Future is inspired by The Wizard of Oz. It's all there, but at least they were original. So this film in the 30s is a brilliant film. You could never remake this film. I'm sure they'll try, but they will never fucking succeed because this film is revolutionary. It starts off in black and white, and when she gets to Oz, it's all colour, Technicolor. This was a groundbreaking event back then. They broke the ground. This is why people got hurt on the movie, because they took a lot of risks. Everything is done in camera. Of course it is. It had to be. There was no computers back then. Very interestingly, I was watching Sam Raimi's Oz the Great and the Powerful, which is kind of a prequel of this story. And there's so much CGI, and I like it. I think it's a good film, and I think Sam did a good job with it. But it's so overly CGI'd, and when you compare it to the physical effects and the matte paintings in this movie, it just goes to show you, it just looks fake. No matter how good CGI is, it looks fake compared to physical effects. And that's something else I want to see. I want us to go back to physical effects in entertainment because it's all fake. It's all surface level. And the quality of writing is no longer there because we're not inspiring young creative people to come into the industry. And the more we do this, the more young people will decide to go into different fields that are not creative, that is not entertainment, because they're going to think, what's the point? I'm not even going to get into the front door. It doesn't matter how talented I am, I'm not going to get there, right? That's the problem. Now, this movie was produced by Samuel Goldwyn's MGM. MGM had the biggest stars, the biggest actors of the time all signed up to them. Because back then, you didn't go to Hollywood, you were invited to Hollywood. And mostly, they looked at people on the stage. People who could sing, dance, and act. The guys who play the Lion, the Scarecrow and the Tin Man were previous performers of the stage and had a lot of experience. That makes sense for a musical, right? Even 16-year-old Judy Garland had stage experience. She had made this film was her 7th movie in 2 years, a 16-year-old. Now, they wanted Shirley Temple to be in that movie, right? A 10-year-old. A 10-year-old girl was the biggest talent in Hollywood in 1939. Amazing. It was a different world. But the way they made movies and the way MGM created a wonderful studio that's now owned by a fucking streaming service. MGM was the biggest studio in the 30s. I believe we could create a studio like MGM. I think MGM of the 30s is a way a studio should be run, with a conveyor belt of talent. We're coming through. You need that. An academy of a drama school, as I mentioned the other day, of a film school, all coming through to that studio. That's what I would want to do. I don't have the power or the influence to save entertainment. I don't have the power or the influence to create a studio like that. But that's what I'd want to do, just to make great stuff. Because here's the thing, and my number one rule would be no social media to my talent, as controversial as that is. And anyway, when you're a familiar face, when you're a public figure, social media isn't a good experience. It hurts your mental health. It's not good for actors and stars to be on social media, right? I would create a studio that protects my talent, my stunt people, my camera people, my cinematographers, my costume designers, my production designers. I would create a studio family. I would protect them. I would create a positive environment, a fun, creative place to be in. Is this a pipe dream? Of course it is. But I think all dreams are possible if you're passionate enough and you believe in them. Someone has to do something, because we can't go along like this, because Western entertainment is dying. In fact, they're not even taking the paddle to the heart. They're not even calling a time of death, but it's dead, everyone. How many of you were truly excited by the announcements you got from CinemaCon yesterday? Are you excited for a Running Man reboot? Really? Are you excited that Heroes is coming back yet again for another reimagining? I know a lot of you that are not, and some of you maybe that are. But I know, like me, there's those of you out there who demand more. And the kind of MGM-like studio running the current era fairly, positively, where we treat talent and the people working with us, not for us. No one would work for us. They'd work with us, right? And it could be an amazing, positive environment. And where we would allow outside agencies to make sure we were, keeping our word. Keeping our word and looking after the people who work within our studio family. An environment of, entertainment, where our number one mission statement would be to uplift and entertain. That's not the mission statement today. Because when I was growing up, when I saw someone, not even just when I was growing up, even in my 20s, when I saw a woman on the screen, mostly I'd either fall in love with her or I'd respect her because she's this go-getting girl, or if she was a woman and I was attracted to her, I'd want to have sex with her. That's okay, by the way. These are the emotions. And if you were attracted to a man, you'd either fall in love with him or want to have sex with him. In Patrick Swayze's case, in Ghost and in Dirty Dancing, you wanted to do both. These are the emotions. When you saw Tom Cruise in the first Top Gun, you wanted to fall in love with him, girls and gay guys, didn't you? And you wanted to have sex with him. That's okay. These are the kind of emotions you should be getting. And men and girls who weren't attracted to these certain types, you looked up to them. You wanted to be them. You wanted to be in their adventure. I wanted to be Dorothy's friend in this movie. I wanted to tell her that everything was going to be all right. I wanted to dance with her on the yellow brick road, right? And that's one thing we don't have today, because your stars of movies and television and entertainment should be untouchable. You should be here and they should be up there. This is what we had in the 30s. This is what we had for many decades and generations. But by making everyone look like you and me, that's been taken away. By having celebrities and talent and artists on social media 24/7, we've taken the untouchable nature away from movies and television, even with, singing artists as well. But this is why I'm saying in my studio, there will be a zero tolerance on social media activity. Whether you think that's a bit authoritarian, it will be for your own good, the studio's own good, and for the films and television shows' own good. You would be somewhat untouchable. We could create an email campaign where fans could email their favourite actors, cinematographers, and directors, and whoever else. Maybe half an hour once a month or something. And maybe, that person would have a moment every month, every 2 months, whatever, to get back to some of those fans. I'd like to see that, because back in the day, we used to write to our favourite stars, didn't we? Rarely they would write back or say in an interview, "Thank you for all the posts I got." We could do that via an email campaign. But people on your screen should be untouchable. You shouldn't look like them. You should aspire to dream, to want to be like them, to want to be in the films that they're in. This is what entertainment has lost everyone. And that's what my mission statement on an MGM type of 1930s studio would be. Of course, we live in different times. Of course, we want to create a positive environment. Of course, we want to make sure that children are not being abused, child actors are being looked after, and not out of desperation to protect their children, that parents need to be on the set 24/7 as well. But if they wanted to be part of that environment and process, of course they would be. We would look after the parents as much as the children, and we would allow outside protectors to come in to make sure we were protecting the children, the women, the boys, the men, everyone who worked with us. This is conducive to a positive environment, where our number one mission statement would be to uplift and entertain people, but by treating the people doing this in the right way. This is what the future of entertainment should look like. But unless someone takes heed and does this, our beautiful industry, our once beautiful industry, will die. It will die, everyone. That's it. It's dead. Because the political extremists in entertainment today and the people who work in entertainment today are trying to create a behavioural utopia. And there's a difference between, living in a world where you create a positive environment in a kind of MGM type studio format of the 30s, but in modern day, in a modern day kind of sense, than trying to create a behavioural utopia. Sometimes people will shout at you. Sometimes a director will shout at you, right? Sometimes you'll argue with people on the set and on location. Sometimes there'll be creative disagreements. This is all healthy. You argue and you make up a couple of hours later. We've all gone to work. We've all fallen out with people. But the Hollywood machine is trying to do something else, create a behavioural utopia, not just in entertainment, but in the world we live in. Alex Garland, who directed this Civil War movie, is saying it's a dangerous world when the public don't trust journalists and the media anymore. What would you do then, Alex? Would you force people to trust journalists? Would you brainwash them to trust journalists? There's a reason we don't trust Access Media either when they report on entertainment or on current affairs and political news anymore, because they're not reporting news, they're reporting views and opinions. Journalism is also dead, like entertainment. This is where we are today. The world has changed for the worse. The world has changed since the making of this film, where Hollywood uplifted people. This film was released just as Hitler invaded Poland. This film didn't make a profit on its first release in movie theatres because there was a war on. But the soldiers fighting against Hitler were arm in arm seeing Somewhere Over the Rainbow. It gave them hope, like those Wonder Woman comics did, like those Superman comics did. That's what these mediums used to do. But today these mediums have become I can't even say the word. Dictators. Forget it. I had the word in my head, but I can't say it, so let's move on from that. But basically, you know, comics, entertainment and music, they've become dictators. And they want to fix how you think. They believe there's right think and wrong think. If you don't agree with a young black woman playing Juliet in a Romeo and Juliet story, you are suddenly racist. Maybe you just don't like the idea. Maybe you've seen a white Juliet all your life and you think, really? Really, this doesn't work? You know, that's not racism. But everything is racism today. Apparently, we're all racist apart from the people in Hollywood. The political extremists in Hollywood are the most racist people they are, because they only cast and employ people with their DNA. It's become a bigger echo chamber than it ever was. And in a way, it kind of was. But there was always a couple of outsiders given a chance. More outsiders than there are today. The same actors, the same directors, the same writers. The level of writing in entertainment, both in the UK and America today, is in the toilet. We need to harness young talent, like they did when George Lucas left film school, and when Coppola and Scorsese left, film school, and they were utilized because they were talent and they thought outside the box. Nobody in Hollywood today thinks outside the box. There's a couple, but even they are not thinking outside the box as much as they should be. If we don't allow new young talent to harness, if we don't create a studio to harness this young talent, to be daring, to do new things, and one other rule, mission statement from my studio would be original work only. No reboots, no relaunches. Maybe we could adapt books that have never been adapted before. I'm okay with that. But rebooting and reworking things that have been done again and again and again has to be stopped, because the public are being insulted. Because when you tell me you're going to reboot a Running Man movie, you're telling me you're going to do a better job, that you know better than the more talented people that came before you. And that, everyone, is the issue. Hollywood can continue to deny, of course they will, the problems I've identified with in this video. But they're factual, it's true, and they've destroyed something that was once so beautiful. Because I'll say what I say all the time. Our young people in general, don't have an escape, not anymore. We're switched on to social media and all the news and all the arguments about this, that and the other all day. Half the time I go to bed with anxiety with what I see on social media. And if you think I'm controversial on social media, there's so many times that I bite my tongue because it hurts me, because it's difficult to go onto social media. at any time, because there's all these opinions on there, especially about entertainment. Things have to change, everyone, because entertainment shouldn't be about creating this environment that everyone gets a chance, right? I want the best white people, the best black people, the best Asian people, the most talented, whatever gender you are, whatever identity you are. I want you all to be able to work in my fantasy studio. That's never going to happen, right? But it doesn't matter who you are, where you're from. If you're talented, you get in. But no way am I giving a white guy or a black guy or an Asian guy a chance in my new fantasy studio. It'll never happen just because of the colour in your identity. Just because of the colour of your skin and your identity. No. But if you're talented, no matter who you are, how many legs you've got, whatever you look like, whatever womb you came out of, you get an opportunity at my fantasy studio that's never gonna happen. That is my mission statement to save this industry.